Okay, we are here on our next call in our series, Talks with Talk. I have a little smirk about that name at the start of every call. Today, talking to Vitor Delarco. Vitor is our, we call him a few different titles, but generally head of technology. So Vitor looks after our dev team essentially. We have a full stack dev team. Vitor has been with the business almost since inception, so quite a while. And I guess just wanted to take the day, Vitor, to talk a little bit about the world of technology or the world of dev in general, which I find really interesting because I'm definitely not a dev, and it's one of the biggest industries biggest subsets in the digital world in general. But anyway, before we get into it, can you just give us, for those watching, marketing managers and what have you, can you give us a quick 2-minute rundown on where in the world you live? Because obviously we run a bit of a remote team structure. So where you live and your working history or your career history to date.
Yeah, okay. I currently live in Brazil, in a state called Mato Grosso. It's in the center of Brazil, a little bit to the west, I guess. It's a little bit far away from the rest of the team. The rest of our team is mostly southeast of Brazil. About my history, I started studying programming when I was 14. I wanted to develop games like every kid.
The cliche developer approach.
Yes, yeah. I wanted to develop games. I actually started by checking an open source game project. And I started with little time, I had school. But over time, when I was 16, I got my first job in programming. And it was in that game. So I think my story I used to tell everyone, my story is not exciting. I found out what I wanted to do early at 14, and I've been doing it since then. I tried different programming languages, environments, companies. The last job I had before I joined Talk was at a fintech, I want to say.
Yep.
So it was developing an application it was very niche. It was very specific to investors, but high-end investors. So data analysis. And my job was to remodel part of their system. So they had this circuit board to match investments and operations and things like that. And my job was to essentially restructure that so it worked better. And I did it for 6 months. And then I left. And about a year later, I joined Talk. So it's not the most interesting story. I didn't find myself when I was in the mountains or something like that. It was just, I found out what I wanted to do pretty early. And I've been doing it since then. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. I guess one of the things that, or I would dare say that something that I think just must really frustrate you is the massive gap between what marketers, what business operators, what people think is dev and what it actually is. When I talk to clients, I often say, businesses think that the technology should be, they've been trained to think that technology is free because everything's sponsored by ads. And so therefore they think it should be free, it should be fast or cheap and easy, when it couldn't be further from the truth. Everything is so complex and takes so much time to build. Do you agree with that, or what is your take on that generally?
Well, over time, I think we all got used to to tech. So before, we used to think that even, just people who were able to edit spreadsheets, they were like tech gods. So the data analysts of the past used Excel, and they had to learn it like in a lot of depth. I think now the view that we have of technologies, of services like Facebook and Netflix and Amazon, which are huge companies with hundreds, if not thousands, of developers. So Google, Apple, and they make the technology that we use every day really accessible. So people tend to think that those systems are trivial. So oh, I'll just use FaceTime, or I'll just just use my face to my face recognition to unlock my phone. Like, it's trivial to everyone. So we tend to think that that's the case whenever we're trying to do something. So it's not uncommon to hear someone ask you, oh, can you do, I don't know, face recognition? And you're like, well, yes, it can be done. Oh, yeah, but can you do it in a week? And, it's not that easy. Oh, but Facebook does it, or Apple does it. And, you're like comparing a project that you want to do with giants of technology. So while those, this is no criticism, because those companies, they actually have many open source initiatives. So they're actually making the internet better all the time. But at the same time, there is this side effect of everyone is just thinking that everything that you want to do in tech is trivial because, I use something like that every day. So it has to be something that's, just everyone can do.
Yeah.
But that's not the case. So it's sort of a tug of war, I guess.
Yes. I agree. I find dev or tech in general, I find it so fascinating because I've been sort of trying to educate myself and learn a lot from you around how big companies structure their technology stacks and how they approach it. And it's almost like you have to think about logic or strategy or planning. Well, you do have to, long before you talk about code and servers and things like that. In your mind, like how do you plan out, or how does your team at Talk plan out a tech project or a dev project? Or what are the steps that you take when you go through a project? Just very, very high level.
The easiest way to go about it is you need to know what you're trying to do. And after you know exactly what you're trying to do, and which is not trivial, it's not as simple as, oh, I want an app. You need to get down to the requirements. And the question usually is, what is the client trying to achieve? What is their end goal?
Yep.
So once you understand that, you have to translate that into requirements for your team. So which service do I have to use? Which API do I have to use? Do I have to use different systems, servers? Do I have to purchase stuff? Do I have to read documentation for this? Do I need research? Do I need to contact support? All of that research is paramount, so you don't have to step back. Stepping back is the worst part of it, because you're building systems that talk inside of your system. You have different parts talking, and you can't have, oh, this doesn't work this way, let's just try a different service. You end up having to modify different parts of your service and your system. So I would say probably 70% of it is not execution. It's down to planning exactly what you need to do. And the most important part of everything, of every project ever, when it's client work, is understanding what the client wants and what the client needs, which usually are not the same thing. And once you do that, you present the client with a couple options of what could be achieved with more time, less time, different services, and even suggest something that could be more applicable to their use case. And developing it, the fun part. So.
Yeah. So planning's super critical. So if we're talking to marketers and they're, or business owners or what have you, and they're thinking about a tech project, so a website, an app, like an ERP, CRM project, something like that. Planning is the first step. How do you recommend that a business goes about ensuring that they get something that is, I feel like this is going to be a good set of words for you, fit for purpose? So how do you know, how does a business know that what they are buying is A, value for money, and B, going to do what they actually want it to do, and is not just someone trying to sell them something that is more profitable for them because they've ripped it off from somewhere else or whatever?
Well, the first part is you have to trust your agency, because whatever you need, those people are going to tell you what needs to happen for you to get what you want.
Yep.
So unfortunately in the business, there are many agencies and many people, even consultants, that will recommend you, the most expensive option or the most time-consuming option, which at the end will be the most expensive one. So you have to find the first step is to finding people you trust. It may not be an agency, it may be someone you know that knows something about that, and then that person will eventually lead you to an agency or a company that can help you with that. And once that's the case, you need to make sure that the agency understands what you want rather than how you want to achieve something. So maybe you mentioned CRMs. Maybe a full integration with your CRM isn't what you need. Maybe your application only takes, leads from form submits and things like that. So you don't need a full-fledged integration, which will cost you, a lot, just for you to get little value out of it. So letting the agency, people you trust, know what you need, and then hearing back, getting that important feedback of, I heard what you need, and here's what we recommend we do together for you to achieve that. I think that's the most important part, because some people, they will come to you and they will tell you, I want this and I want this done this way. So you're just limiting the options. It could be that you would get a better option, and it doesn't mean that it's going to be more expensive. You just have to trust that the recommendation that you're getting is good, and maybe just checking around, checking different options, different agencies to see if what you're getting is indeed the best. And yeah, I think that's the most important part. So I think it's actually, as a developer, I want to say that the way that you do it, it is pretty important. Getting all of the requirements and then developing a bad product is definitely not the way to go. But at the same time, getting all the wrong requirements and developing the perfect product for the wrong requirements is even worse.
Okay, so you need to find, if you don't have knowledge yourself in your business, you need to find someone you trust truly that has knowledge, that is either an agency or like a tech provider, or can connect you to a tech provider that like act as a conduit. And then you need to ensure that you plan as much as is within your knowledge, and those outside parties plan the project with as much detail as possible.
I would say even if you have the knowledge, for instance, for many of the projects, I have the knowledge, but I still check around, I still read documentation and articles and different opinions, because the worst thing that you can do is assume that you know everything, or you know the perfect way to do something, because it may end up, as a business, all you want a good solution for a problem. It doesn't have to be cheap. It is good if it's cheap, but you want that the cost benefit. So if you're just getting, the cheapest option, or, just do it this way, and then it doesn't quite work for you, then it's not good either way. So why not, if you're going to someone that you think is capable of helping you, why not just listening to what they have to say, even if at the end you stick to your opinion, hearing their opinions and listening to what they have to say is, you know, just the least you can do. You're paying for it after all.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So trust, gather information and requirements and planning, and then working through a project. How does a client make sure that they are getting what they need through the project? Because this is an interesting one, actually. Throw you under the bus a little bit. Clients always come to us and they're like, oh, can I get an update? Can I get an update? And some projects can take a really long time to build. They can be really big. And I, you know, as an account manager or what have you, like I can give, or the client team, we can give updates on projects, definitely written updates. But it's very hard to actually get a visual demonstration of a product midway through a build. How do you best recommend that clients sort of address that, knowing that ultimately they want to see something at some point? Comes back to trust, I guess.
Yeah, to me, it's mostly about trust, because the thing is, developing a product is not visual at all. So when you're developing a website, that's a very interesting question, because you have to think of your website as just an interface to access a bunch of information and a bunch of components and different parts working in harmony to do whatever you want. So what you see there isn't the actual inner workings of it. It's just how we're presenting it. So Netflix is a great example. Netflix, you go there, you search, you click, you're watching something, but imagine all the work going behind the scenes. So if you're developing something like Netflix and you have a client and he's like, oh, I want to be able to watch something. Watching something maybe, 50% of the way. It may be only possible 50% of the way, or even further, because you're having to take care of all of where are the videos sitting? Do I have to get a bunch of servers? How do the servers communicate? How do I serve content that is closer to the user? Would I serve a Brazilian user content from Japan? Or can I do something that's closer? All of that, the inner workings, isn't something that you see. All you see is the nice video that you just click and it works.
Yeah.
So it's a point that's really hard to get across, because that's not the way that most people see it. They see it as, do I see the pretty screen? And if I do, then yeah, that's working. It's halfway, or it's sort of done. Whereas we could do all of the screens in like a week. You have 20 screens, yeah, we'll do all of the screens in a week. They won't do anything for you. You won't be able to click. There will be no actions tied to, no consequences tied to any actions. You won't be able to, submit a contact form. You won't be able to see the nice animation that you wanted in your website. You will see the interface, but it will be empty. So I think this is key to trying to explain this to clients. What you're seeing is just an interface to everything that's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's like the old iceberg, and then like you only see the tip, but this is how big it actually is. And so, and I see that in sales as well. Like if I quote a client a price like this, they think it should be like this because they can only see this, but really the project is this big. That's an interesting one. That's a big discussion. In terms of that's good. In terms of like technology, we use WordPress a lot, and I know you really have a love-hate relationship with WordPress. You definitely don't. You probably hate it more than you love it, but it's a bit of a necessary evil for a lot of businesses. How do you? And I know this is getting a bit more granular, but do you see WordPress as being valuable for like small businesses or medium businesses, or do you think there's a better way that clients should or businesses should consider?
I don't believe in one size fits all. So I wouldn't say, this is good for you or this is not good for you. But WordPress is a consolidated way of making websites, and there's a lot of support. There are a lot of plugins, so you can probably readily just make a website by purchasing a template, changing an image here, image there, changing text, and then you get a bunch of plugins which could, send all of your contact forms straight to your MailChimp account, or just do something with your contact forms. So all of that, the popularity for WordPress doesn't come from it being good from a technical perspective. It comes from it having a lot of support and a lot of developers behind it, working on plugins and things that make your website just do things that you would have to pay for otherwise. And they're just there, you have to possibly purchase a plugin, but once you do that, you just install it, and if you know what you're doing, it will be no trouble for you to set up something that you would otherwise probably pay a lot of money for.
Yeah. And just leading on from that conversation, so WordPress, you can do templates in WordPress. You get a website live really efficiently with a template. You can do custom WordPress, so you get the design you want, and then you code to WordPress. At what point you can use, like you said, plugins make things more efficient, more cost-effective to build, but they add bloat to the site. At what point does a business go from, does the business case for a bespoke CMS or an enterprise CMS or a closed source CMS, something that's a much bigger beast than, say, a WordPress or even smaller like a Squarespace or something, at what point does the business case go more viable? What are the things that a business should consider as being a reason for something bigger or more robust than WordPress?
That's a hard question, because most of the very big CMSs, they have specific niches that are good for them. So you will find that I want to say there are some CMSs that are better if you're, nonprofit, or they have better prices if you're a nonprofit. And I don't think there is the right answer for this question, because it all comes down to what you're trying to do. So you could have a massive website on WordPress. The problem that needs to be understood with CMSs is, as you said, they make things easier, but there's a price for it. So if you have a WordPress website, it will never be on top of the SEO ranks. It will never be the best performing website. It doesn't mean that it's going to be slow and people are, you have no conversions because your website is low. But at the same time, it's not as well polished as, bigger CMSs. But at the same time, some of the bigger CMSs cost you $30,000-$50,000 a year for you to use them. So they're not for expensive. The small business. They're not for the small business. So I would say that the right answer to the question is always just go with whatever you're trying to do. So you have to understand what you're trying to do and the best way to get there, rather than, and we hear that a lot from clients, well, I want to use Magento. I want to use WordPress. I want a WordPress website. But before you tell us what you want, why don't you tell us what you need? And then we'll see if that's the best option for you.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Do you have, just as a bit of a parting gift, do you have any wise words of wit or wisdom or counsel for businesses watching in terms of what they should just stay away from, or what they should really be careful of when it comes to working on a tech project?
You have to stay away from people who won't tell you exactly what they're doing, and people who are trying to dodge questions. There are a lot of business around that will just tell you that something is being done, and that is the case for us too. People ask, just like you said, some project is not visible until it's like 50% done. So clients will say, well, can I see something? And at that point, some businesses, they will say, oh, it's almost done. It's, I don't know, it's 30% done or something like that. But if you have something to show, the business will trust you more. At the same time, this means that if you're trying to close a contract or sign a contract with an agency, and they're trying to sell you on, oh, I'll have this to you in a week. We'll have this big project for you in 2 days. We have an internal joke of a website for $50. We'll have your website for $150. Yeah. So this is actually a joke for us because you're actually paying for something that is not going to be good, because it can't possibly be worth someone's time. You have project managers, you have account managers, you have developers, you have designers working on your website. How can you possibly make that work for $150? So going back to the actual question, I think clients should stay clear from people who will not tell you exactly what you're doing or what they're doing and what you need. A good quality agency, it doesn't have to be big. It doesn't mean that it's a big agency, but a good agency will tell you not only what they want to do for you, but what you need. It could be that you go to a really good agency and you describe all your needs, and the agency just tells you, well, we believe that you need all of this, but we're not the right agency for you. We don't have the manpower, or we don't have the knowledge to do this. This has happened to us in the past, where we found our clients asking us for projects that were required people specialized in paid systems and things like that, and we just got back to them saying, hey, this is highly specialized service. We could provide that for you, but the additional cost would be prohibitive. You wouldn't want to go on with this. So basically, summing it all up, stay away from people who won't tell you exactly what they think you need, and people who won't give you updates because, oh, we're figuring out how to do something. This doesn't have to ever happen during a project. This is a planning stage question. Here's what we're going to do for you, and here's possibly how we're going to do that for you. So again, it's a bit of a gray area, because we're between not being able to show clients something because the system is really big, and you can't just build a website and just say, hey, use this part of the website and then we're going to build the rest. But at the same time, you don't want to just tell the client, oh, yes, we know what you want. We'll just trust us. We'll take care of you. We'll do what you need. That shouldn't be the case. You have to make sure that the agency you choose explains exactly what they're going to do for you, and that they understand your needs. And once that happens, you can follow up by checking on the project, getting estimates on when you'll be able to see, a first screen, a second screen. So it boils down to trust, and to being able to, if you don't trust the agency, maybe you're going to a new one. It's about building the trust, explaining what you need, having the agency tell you how they can help you with that. And if you trust what they're telling you, you go to verify what they're telling you with different agencies or with someone that knows about it, then that's the best course of action. So pretty much the answer to all of the questions so far is based on trust and based on explaining your needs, which I guess at the end of the day, all of us, we got into this to help people. to help businesses, small, medium, big, it doesn't matter. We got into this to help people. So we try to provide the best solution for you and to recommend different options. And this is really just us trying to make your business better. And it will boil down to trust. You have to trust that the agency that you choose will be able to make your business at least a little bit better.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. That's a good parting thought. We might leave it there. Thank you so much for your time. And yeah, we'll catch up again soon.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Vito. Bye.
Bye.